to the Greater Cape Cod Collaborative Independent School Week. This is actually a really neat panel that we have today, so everyone can understand what independent schools offer students here on the Cape. And we have several panelists with us who will explain what independent schools really are, what the week is all about. So we're going to start to my right. And Amy, introduce yourself and what school are you from?
Hi, I'm Amy Galvam. I'm at the Waldorf School of Cape Cod, which is in Cotuit.
Great. Shannon?
I'm Shannon Mott, and I'm from Cape Cod Academy, which is in Osterville, Massachusetts.
And Ben?
I'm Ben Haskell, headmaster of Trinity Christian Academy in Barnstable, Mass.
Mike?
I'm Mike Early, the assistant head of Falmouth Academy, Falmouth, Mass.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Lawson, assistant head of Bridgeview Montessori School in Bourne.
And I'm Cheryl Dean, Director of Admissions at Friends Academy in Dartmouth, Massachusetts.
Excellent. There's lots of talk about independent schools and school choice. We hear it a lot in the news. I think we actually all heard it possibly in our State of the Union last night about education. So this is a great time to start to discuss this. Can one of you tell us a little bit about Independent School Week and how the association came to be and how you were all a part of it?
Well, let me just quickly make a quick distinction there.
Sure.
This group is called the Greater Cape Cod Collaborative of Independent Schools.
Right.
We're here today as part of National School Choice Week, which is next week, actually, I believe. So there are actually two different things going on, but certainly as independent school professionals, we celebrate school choice, and so that's why we're here.
Okay, so can someone actually talk about the national organization? Because I think this is something that not a lot of folks out there would really know about.
Paula, School Choice Week is a national group that is trying to promote empowering parents to understand the full breadth of their choices. There's lots of ways to educate a child, and there's not one right way. And so they're trying to put information out there so parents can make informed choices.
Okay.
You know, it could be public, charter, religiously affiliated independent schools that are methodology-based, even homeschooling as an option, but parents don't necessarily know that. So it's a resource online, as well as having community events across the country to celebrate this choice so that parents can learn more and really not be afraid to see what options there are for them and their children.
Well, that's great. I hadn't realized there was such a resource out there for folks to learn about school choice. It's not just about getting on the bus anymore.
Exactly.
Excellent. And the Greater Cape Cod Collaborative of Independent Schools, is it just the 6 schools here as members, or are there more members?
When we came together, we had this group in place about 12 years ago, and it sort of fell apart. And then a couple of years back, the folks at Cape Cod Academy and Falmouth Academy came together to kind of reinstitute the group, and we cast the net pretty wide. The 6 of us have sort of attached to this group and wanting to make something of it. I think we trust each other. We are all working towards the same thing, which is that each child has a place to go. So although we have invited other schools, this group of 6 has become really active in the Greater Cape Cod Collaborative of Independent Schools. We are none of us are publicly funded. None of us are associated with a diocese. We are all nonprofit. We are all tuition driven, or charged tuition. And I think that that's what makes us unique. But we have invited other schools to join us. But right now, this group of 6 is sort of the power behind the group.
Well, great. Again, you can be a resource as well for the community. I'm understanding that folks could, contact one of you to discuss what school choice is all about and what their options might be. And let's really talk about that this morning. Why choose an independent school? The Cape actually has some great schools over the geography area of Cape Cod, from, used to be Provincetown, but from Nauset right up through Bourne. Why would somebody choose an independent school?
Well, independent schools have a school mission. And it might be faith-based, or it might be single-sex, or it might be a school that is it serves children just in the early childhood, or would serve children up to the grade 6. Might have a high school component. Each of these independent schools also have beliefs and goals that support their school's mission. So we're all quite different because our missions are different. And we're not a catch-all as many the public schools are. So we serve a unique niche in the community.
How about anybody else? Somebody want to add to that? Why, if I have a child, how would I determine that maybe an independent school might be a choice for me? Would there be things about my child? Would there be things about my own beliefs that I would want to send a child to a different type of school?
I tell a sort of a general answer, which actually happened to me with my own child, which was, and all the mommies that I was hanging out with when my kids were little, and it was, my child will be fine in our town school. My child will be fine. And I tell that story because as an educator, I thought fine was not okay. And I wanted there to be something more than fine. And I think what we provide in our different schools is more than fine. In fact, I think it's extraordinary. And I think that why settle for fine when there are these choices out here that can work for your family? So I like to tell that story, and that it can be better than fine.
Okay.
I think there's also, every child is different, and every child learns differently, and there are different scenarios and environments that are going to help that child thrive. A public school has to meet the needs of everybody, and while I have great respect for public schools, and I think there are some fabulous public schools on Cape Cod and in Massachusetts, it's not necessarily the environment for everybody. A lot of independent schools tend to be smaller classroom sizes, and that's appealing to some kinds of kids. For some kinds of kids, that doesn't work. So you need to know your child first,
Yep.
what your resources are for your family, what your beliefs for education are, and then visit and see what feels like a good fit.
I also think it's important to note that as a family unit, you don't have to choose an independent school for all of your children. There may be one child in your family for whom an independent school is the choice, and your other children or child may not be the choice. I personally have two very different children, and like Suzanne, I have one that I would be fine in public school, and my other one would probably not be fine. So you need to look at your children individually and discover what is the best fit for them.
Excellent. So myths about independent schools. We hear that they're too expensive, or they're too cliquey, or they don't have enough sports, they don't have enough extracurricular activities. Give me some myth busters, folks. What can we bust out and say that what you've heard about independent schools isn't true?
Most of our schools have a scholarship program for students. There's scholarships available based on merit. It might be based on leadership qualities. Could be based on financial need. And it does help a pretty wide population base demographically to attend our schools.
Independent schools are not the real world. And of course they're not. The real world is unsafe, unkind. So thank goodness that independent schools teach values that are often missing in the public arena.
I have to say that our parent body, and probably all of your parent bodies, are incredibly diverse. First of all, we have two working parents often who are working really hard, sometimes two jobs, to afford this for their children. So they're driven parents. They're parents who have put their children first in many ways. We have families whose grandparents are helping, and we see grandparents at pickup. We have two mom families. We have two dad families. I would say that one of the things I love about our parent body is the community, because they have all shared this vision for their child. And I would say that our parent body, and probably all of yours, are incredibly diverse. And that's one of the things I love about being in our school is our incredible community of diverse folks who want the same thing for their child.
When my oldest daughter, who's now in 6th grade, was entering 1st grade, we found out she had an anaphylactic peanut allergy that wasn't going to be well served at our local public school. And that's sort of how we got into the whole realm of independent schools. And I had a lot of those same myths. I thought, oh, it's going to be too expensive. You know, we're not that family. We can't do this. And then I started to look around. We live in Plymouth, so I looked around there first, and then we came down on the Cape and we looked at different Montessori schools and Waldorf options for the, for 1st grade. And I found that it was accessible to us, and that they really did try to bend over backwards, every school, to try to make it financially feasible for us, and that they really wanted to find the best fit for my daughter and to make sure that they could meet her needs. And she had a medical need, a very serious one, that wasn't being adequately addressed in the local public school that we have. And so it sort of turned that upside down for my family. My husband was a public school kid. He wanted my children to go through public school and felt like that's where we belonged for lots of reasons, and I support public education. But for us, it really wasn't a good fit for her. And it opened up a whole new realm for us, and I understood it better. And so now that I'm on this side of the table and I can speak to parents, I feel like I have a very good perspective to share with them and to show them that it is possible, and that one model doesn't necessarily fit everybody. My children go to the Waldorf school, and I think it's a great fit for them, but I wouldn't hesitate to send somebody else somewhere else, because I know these institutions are wonderful that I sit on this panel with, and one thing doesn't necessarily fit every child.
That's a great explanation. Anybody else want to add to that? Anybody else got a myth buster?
I would probably add to that as well that because of the schools being smaller, quite often when we have activities, students are more involved. It's more inclusive. Say our basketball team, for instance, there's several students that might not be able to play and make the varsity at their local public schools, but are on the team, playing, and part of the community. It's the same thing whether it's a drama production, band, art, just the amount of individual attention they get, and the care and encouragement from teachers as well as the other students really helps them to be involved and to access a lot of those activities that they wouldn't otherwise.
Yeah, that's great. Rather than being exclusive, you're inclusive. Very
highly
nice.
inclusive.
I like that.
If I could just underline what Ben already commented on, I think on the question of tuition and affordability. I think that's one of the biggest myths with independent schools. I think an awful lot of people see a school they think might be great for their kid, but they go to the website or they ask what the tuition is, they see that number, and they don't take it any further, and they don't explore further. We, for example, I think all of our schools, Ben mentioned that we all have financial aid programs. They all differ a little bit, but just for context, our financial aid budget's more than $1.5 million yearly. So those are grants that are applied. Ours are purely need-based, so that 45% of our families are paying some different number than that full tuition. I think that's crucial for working families or for single parents to know. If you think one of our schools might be the best educational environment for your child, you should not let the tuition number deter you from exploring further.
Mike, does the Falmouth Academy have a merit-based scholarship too?
We have, thank you for asking. We have a very small scholarship exam coming up this Saturday, and we give 3 merit-based awards based on that. But they're small, they're tiny in comparison to the need-based program. I think all of our schools want to be part of the Greater Cape Cod community. We understand the demographics of this community. We have no desire to be elitist socioeconomically, though I think we all feel we're turning out students who have some advantages based on having been in our schools, but socioeconomically we enroll a really diverse population.
Sure. Let's talk about diversity a little bit in the realm of, in public schools, the enormous amount of SPED education and money spent on SPED. What do independent schools offer people with learning disabilities, children that have a different learning ability? Is there, I think sometimes people perceive independent schools as you have to have a wicked smart kid to get in, but smart is not always a great judgment of how a child learns and what they learn. So can you address that, you know, the learning disabilities and how independent schools kind of combat that and whether that's a myth or not?
Most independent schools do celebrate the diversity that we have in our student population as learners. You'll find at most independent schools that it's not straight rows, lecture style. We value that children learn in many different ways. At Friends Academy, for example, we have different kinds of seating. We have stand-up tables with a swivel bar at the bottom. Kids just need to move. We've got yoga chairs that are balls because they need to bounce. They can stand, they can sit, they can read on the windowsill, they can lie on the floor. Also at Friends Academy, we have a very unique program. It's called the Sally Borden program, and it's specifically for children with language-based learning differences like dyslexia. It's a school within Friends Academy, a very strong program to help these children who are extremely bright and creative to learn to read and write in just a different way. The program also strengthens our traditional program at Friends Academy because the strategies that the teachers use in the Sally Borden program are very, very beneficial to any child.
And at the Waldorf School, we don't do standardized testing, and we try to keep it a stress-free learning environment, and that is a crucial value for our school. Children a lot of times will come very stressed out when they've transferred in from another educational setting, especially a public school, and they are met with a lot of receptivity and love, and they take the pressure off of the learning experience. And so children who come in may be adverse to reading because it's just been pushed so strongly from such an early age. You know, initially they don't want to read, and the teachers will really kind of help them and allow them to come to it on their own, so that instead of it being something that they are forced into doing, they do it because they love it and it's an accomplishment and they see it as something to celebrate in themselves. And it sounds almost kind of trite to say that, but I've seen it in action, and it's beautiful to watch these children kind of turn it around and to be intrinsically motivated to learn, and they're learning because they want to learn as opposed to somebody giving it to them kind of in a top-down way. And I think that that's sort of consistent across the board as we try to foster that sense of empowerment, of learning on your own, and having a very nurturing environment. And I think that's one of the key things to an independent school, is to have that.
The small class sizes as well allows the faculty to really differentiate between different student needs as well. You know, there's some students who are really avid readers, and the teacher's able to hone in on that and do something with that within the framework of all the other curriculum pieces that they're working with. So that's another great advantage of being in a smaller size classroom, to differentiate.
I think the other thing, some of us start in early childhood, so we'll have children who start with us at 2.9, and as they get older, we may notice learning differences arising, and so we take the time to really get to know the child as a learner. And then I think all of us are really honest with how can our school serve this child. And so even if it's a child who wants to join one of our communities, you know, and at the elementary ages, we do incredible work with the families and the children to get to know them, to know if our school is going to be a good fit, because what we want is for those children who maybe haven't been successful to feel successful. Because when they can feel successful, they're going to do their best work. So I guess I would say that our admissions processes allow for us to ensure a great match. And there'll be times that we'll say, this might not be the right fit for your child, even though a parent might desperately want a Montessori experience in my case. And I think we're all really honest about that. We're not in the business of just taking a child, you know, taking your money and taking your child. We want children to be successful, and we care deeply about that, and it's great for our school when that happens, when we make a family-school match. So I think we're really honest with who we can serve, and try and be really honest with the families through that process. And we take a lot of time to get to know the children before we admit them into our programs.
I just want to say, I think that's kind of an important point about the admissions process and the fact that independent schools have one, but maybe it's a myth as well about independent school. The term itself sort of indicates, some trial by fire where you're going to be admitted into this school. I don't think, and I think everybody at the table has worked in admissions or still does. I think it's a process of getting to know that child, getting to know the parents, and then the parents and the student getting to know the school. I think we all do visits, extensive visits to the school and interviews, and we hear from their previous teachers, for those of us who enroll older students. And that whole process is really less about admission, I think, in many cases, and more about assuring the right fit. And so we can address some differences in learning style or in family values and what families are looking for, that because the things come up in that process, and we can then communicate with the parents and with the teachers once a student enrolls.
Excellent. There was a lot of great points that folks just brought up on this question. Here's a couple that I kind of want to ask as follow-ups. Today's students are so pressured in the public school systems anyway, from Common Core and some of the other standardized testing, where even some of the educators are lamenting that they are teaching the test rather than teaching. How does independent schools handle standardized testing? Do you have standardized testing? And how has the curriculum kind of worked with that? I know Montessori schools obviously have a different type of curriculum, but the whole testing, I think a lot of kids out there right now, the testing is tough, and it starts very, very early now.
Well, at a Waldorf school, we also have an early childhood program, and our classes go from 1st grade to 8th grade. It's also designed as an 8-year arc is how we talk about it, and that the curriculum builds on itself as children progress through the grades. It is a strongly developmental approach to education, and that's sort of a catchphrase, but it actually is very true in that the teachers have been taught to look at the needs of the child based on where they are developmentally and bring that type of curriculum to them at that time. And so we sort of feel like at a Waldorf school, children up until about 7 are still just sort of getting their feet on the ground, and that they learn a lot through wonderful engagement with their teachers. A lot of it is imitation. A lot of it is having a good feeling and a bond. And so they work a lot with fostering their imagination and helping them with pre-verbal skills and early language development by creating a very rich imagination life, but they try to do it in a very non-pressured way. And that's a very crucial core value for a Waldorf school. And then as the child grows, they've formed this love for learning, and they love being at school, and it's a very positive environment. And from that, they soak in all of the academic and intellectual curriculum, but it's done more through play and engagement and imitation. And so it's intentionally by design. There's no standardized testing, and they try to keep it as much pressure-free as possible. And of course, that changes as the child grows and how they develop and mature. And then, things get brought to them at the right time and a little more seriously because they're more able to handle it. But if they have a very positive beginning, then that sets them on the right track for how they move through the rest of their academic career. And they've never had that experience of doing it just to please this other person, but because it's something that they enjoy and it brings them life. And so that's sort of an overriding principle in how we move forward. And I think that's true in a lot of schools, but it's very crucial for us.
Anybody else want to address the standardized testing and the curriculum?
Well, most independent schools, I would say, our independent schools are not government funded, and so we don't need to follow these state mandated assessments like the MCAS. But some schools do give standardized tests, independent school ones. For example, at Friends Academy, we give the standardized independent school tests in grades 3, 5, and 7. It's more, there's very little preparation. We put very little emphasis on the test for the children. And we really use these assessments to take a look at internally our curriculum and how we're doing. We don't even send the test scores home to parents unless they ask for them. And like I said, the students are almost our guinea pigs to see, you take this test, see how we're doing. But it's also a skill. You know, the bubbling in on answer sheets is a skill that kids are going to need in the future, particularly in high school or when they're taking their SATs. And so, you know, it is helpful to give them some practice in doing that, but it is, we are not required to give the MCAS in every grade.
What about the guys that go to 12th grade, though? You know, as you're coming through your high school career, you know, testing actually does become a little bit more important as you have to prepare for PSATs and SATs. How do independent schools address that type of testing if you don't test on a regular basis through MCAS or Common Core?
We offer the PSAT at our school for sophomores and juniors and ensure that they take the SAT at their closest place that's available, which is usually their public high school. And they will normally do that, like all the students, from across the nation in April, and then we'll take it again early their senior year.
Sorry.
Yep.
You go.
Well, so I think for us, the key, and I think I can speak for most or all independent schools, I think the key is that the testing should not determine what is taught. So a key reason to consider an independent school is that in independent schools, the teachers and the curricular leaders in the school determine what's taught, not some outside tests that's designed by someone who's never set foot in the school. I think for those of us that go up through the 12th grade, having the PSAT scores, the SAT scores, the AP scores, and then of course college admissions, that gives us a gauge of where we stand in relation to the big wide world. And if we weren't successful on those fronts, we wouldn't exist anymore since we don't receive any public funding.
Excellent.
And I do think you made the point, like, if they're not being tested, how do you know? And I guess I want to say, and we don't go up through 12th, we just go through 6th. Children in small schools are being assessed every day, you know, throughout their time in their classrooms with their teachers who know them so intimately. And I think that that's one of the myths, perhaps, is that we need this test to say how our children are doing, but in fact, they're being assessed all the time. They're being worked with, assessed. We know every step of their path and their journey that they're taking. We're communicating that through parents, often with multiple conferences throughout the year, elaborate report cards, if you will, or which are often narrative reports, you know. So they're being assessed all the time, and that a standardized test or any kind of testing is one form of assessment, and you know, I would argue not a particularly valuable one compared to the other kinds of assessments we're doing all the time.
That's right.
That's great. Excellent. Well, let's talk about some fun stuff here. What courses do you offer that a public school wouldn't offer, or some other schools? I know, obviously, I had the dream of going to a Montessori school because I think I could play with clay all day.
Which is a myth, Paula.
You can't play with clay, Montessori?
There's no playing with clay all day.
Okay, maybe Waldorf then, right?
All right.
What are some of the classes, courses that your schools offer that you might not find in a public school offering?
At Bridgeview, we start our art history curriculum for our 2.9-year-olds. So students take art history from 2.9 years old through 6th grade. I think we believe in art history in Montessori classrooms because we're often studying the artists who are innovators, who changed the direction of art in their time. And so we'll have little children coming back to report that they were at Target and they saw the Target symbol, and that's a Jasper Johns. And so they'll tell the teacher. And we had one child who just wanted to be Georgia O'Keeffe for Halloween when she was 4. And I think Maria Montessori believed in respecting the intellect of the child. And so to teach art history to those children as they're coming through the ages is something I think that's unique to our school. That's one of the many things. But I think it underscores the fact that children can do so much. And to give them those options and those in-depth curriculums is just wonderful.
Okay, come on.
In our lower school, we have a Spanish curriculum that begins in pre-K And it goes all the way through to the upper school, although there's more options for languages as you get into 7th grade and beyond. But one of the wonderful things is our Spanish curriculum. The teacher that we have actually taught in a public school on Cape Cod, and she said, you know, what I'm able to do here is so amazing. I can really, it's a part of the curriculum. It's an actual course that kids meet multiple times a week, and they're utilizing the skills and building on those so that they're really learning the Spanish language. Another piece of that is in our lower school we have an actual science teacher who teaches the kids kindergarten through grade 6, and she has lab time with the kids in lower school, which is really phenomenal. My daughter in 2nd grade had come home one day and said, I was learning about the pH balance of the soil in science, and I was blown away. I actually had to look it up. So that was really neat. And as you get into our older curriculum, we have some neat opportunities for our students. We have a mastery learning program, which is our version of an independent study. And that just offers kids a variety of ways in which they can choose a passion of theirs and take it out into the community and be supported by us and go. And we also offer science internships. Those are just a couple of the really exciting opportunities that our students have available to them that they can really take and move forward with.
Fantastic, Shannon.
Spanish starts at our school at a very young age also, in 1st grade. But in 6th grade, everyone stops Spanish and takes Latin. Now, what middle school teaches Latin? All 6th graders are required to take Latin. Excellent. And they can take it for 3 years. They can either decide after 6th grade that they go back to Spanish and take it for 2 more years, or take Latin.
At the Waldorf, oh, sorry, go ahead, Ben.
Okay. We do something similar. We have Latin instruction as well, 5 days a week in 7th and 8th grade. Then our students make a choice of Spanish or French in their high school years. Probably, you know, being the independent Christian school on the Cape, we also have Bible instruction from pre-K all the way through 12th grade, and of course it varies from age level to age level in terms of what we're teaching, but that's probably the thing that makes us, you know, distinct that way.
Great. So at the Waldorf School, a lot of people, there's a myth on the Cape that we are an art school, and we're not, but art is a strong tool that's used in the classroom, and the premise being that if children can do something that's beautiful or do it with art, they invest in it more fully, and so art is a tool that gets used across the curriculum from 1st grade all the way on, and so you'll see children actually create their own workbook and their own textbook in a Waldorf classroom, and that's the model that stays with them through the 8 years that they're there. And so things are brought to them creatively and experientially. The teacher brings the lessons to them, and then the children work with it, and then it goes down into their books. And so by the end of the school year, the child's created their own textbook that they take with them, and that sort of shows the learning that they've done throughout the year. Across the 8 years, they're exposed to all sorts of things that are meant to kind of stimulate the whole child, you know, their emotional development, their physical development, as well as their intellectual development. And so in all 8 years, they'll study music, they'll study language. They do French from 1st grade to 8th grade. They start with the recorder. By the end of 8th grade, they can play all 4 recorders, as well as pick up violin and orchestral instruments as they go through the middle school. We add Latin in 6th grade to complement French, which they stay with through 8th grade. Our science curriculum starts in early childhood, actually. They don't call it that, but you know what they're doing when they're building and doing spatial relationships and things like that, and cooking and climbing are all premises and basic STEM skills, and that goes through the curriculum. So I feel like we have a very rich and vibrant, all-encompassing curriculum that's brought to the children.
How about you, Mike? What's cool?
Well, I think probably what's cool, one of the things that's cool is that we're located 3 miles from the Woods Hole scientific community. And so we're lucky to have faculty members who are still doing their own research in Woods Hole, to have friends in the community and partners who are scientists in Woods Hole. And so our students get to do mentored science projects. They get to go out in the field. They'll go out on class trips out into the field where they'll be joined by Woods Hole scientists. We have 6 paid internships. down there. And so that, the community of Falmouth really influences our school, I think, on the scientific and also on the artistic front, along the lines of what Amy was saying. But I think all of our schools are unique because of where we're located too, and the opportunities we're able to take advantage of, and Woods Hole certainly is a great resource for us.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
Got a couple more questions and then we'll wrap it up here. But one of the things that, you know, public education has always done is the after-school programs. You know, from you know, Girl Scouts at the end of the day when I was a kid, or brownies, to clubs and those kinds of things. Do independent schools offer the same enrichment programs after school?
Absolutely, and I would dare to say even more. There's anything from academic enrichment to sports, as well as artistic, robotics, wood shop, photography. We even had an etiquette class once that ended with a tea party. And it changes all the time based on the interests of the students and the interests and talents of the teachers, as well as parents. Parent involvement in independent schools is amazing. We're a community, we need our parents, we want our parents there, and so they're there helping not only on fundraising or PTA, but also teaching classes in the afternoon. They bring their own talents and interests. And so the after-school programs that you find at independent schools often change on a yearly semester basis.
Neat. Anybody else?
We have a good after-school program and I'm forgetting the word, non-competitive sports program that they played together. It's a small school, so as far as body count, we don't have that many players, but what they lack in that, they make up in enthusiasm. We also have a summer program that's getting off the ground. We also do a lot of parent education and community-wide education as well. So it's not just after-school programs for the students, but it's for the parents as well. This month, actually in March, we have a parent education conference where we have an early childhood teacher who's well-known in her field coming, that's open to anyone, parents, grandparents, public school teachers, independent school teachers, just so that we can keep feeding, you know, not just our students, but our families as well.
Well, what about the higher level, the 12th grade schools? You know, service learning as part of the curriculum. You know, after-school projects that help the community. We see a lot from Falmouth Academy and obviously Cape Cod Academy and the Trinity Christian School. You know, your students are out there. Is that a requirement of your schools that they perform some type of service-based? You know, volunteerism seems to be rampant in independent schools.
For us specifically at Cape Cod Academy, our seniors every May, they have their senior day, whatever the first Friday is in May, and then their whole month of May is service-based projects. So they are actually physically off campus. They do come back to campus once a week and meet with their advisor for their projects for the whole month. And talk with each other, and a lot of them pair up in twos or threes and go to one location and do something. We've had Habitat for Humanity, 3 Bays Preservation, a whole variety of opportunities that our students have taken advantage of. So that is something that our students do every May as seniors.
And community service or service learning isn't necessarily limited to schools that have a high school component. For example, at our school, the service learning component is part of the culture of the school. It's part of the mission of the school. Our mission statement, part of it states a respect for diversity and differences and becoming responsible citizens. And so you find children as early as first grade taking on a project, animal advocates, for example, and visiting a local animal shelter, learning more about the needs, doing a drive, baking dog cookies in our teaching kitchen, connecting with an assisted living residents or a local children's school for children who have physical challenges. And so children as young as 3 and 4 can be involved in something, and there's always a learning component about reaching out to the community, being part of the community. Because as responsible citizens, we're teaching them that's what we do.
I think when you're in a school that enrolls high school students, college admissions looms a bit large on this front. So when you talk about after-school activities, when you talk about athletics, certainly community service, there's pressure on students now, I think, to come to college with 9 extracurricular activities. So I do think it's really important for parents and for certainly the educators in the schools to encourage kids certainly to be involved in their community. We want kids to be involved in the life of the school. We think it's most healthy for them to be in our athletic program or our drama program after school instead of out in the streets somewhere. But they should do things they love. They should not be building a resume, in my opinion. In fact, I think the best way to build a resume that will make you attractive to the best colleges and universities is to do the things you love and to do them seriously.
Our school does require 100 community service hours. Most students fulfill that by the end of their freshman year, and they are very involved, whether it's in their local churches or through the school. We have something going on just literally every month, and it ranges from high school down into the elementary school. Quite often the projects are student-led, and that's part of what we feel is leadership training for our students to get them out into the community, understanding the different community struggles, how to impact those in a very, very positive way, and to be part of the solution and realize that at an early age that they can do that, to kind of pave the way for them to be more meaningful adult lives later, and to be part of the solution rather than just sitting back and having knowledge that there are problems, but to be part of the community's approach to those. And there are creative ways that our students come up with that are very well received by every, from the different things where you're raising money for different illnesses or diseases that are out there, to clothing, food drives, going out and cleaning up a road, and the opportunities are there, and they're certainly part of the schools.
Bridgeview Montessori School, starting last year and for the next couple of years, we are in partnership with the Bourne Sandwich Head Start program, which is up the street from us. Of course, Maria Montessori brought her beliefs and her theories to the slums and served all sorts of children. And we think that's really important as a Montessori community to bring it out. And so our children, starting last year, we did a stone soup project, and every student in the school made a bowl, including our 3-year-old. And then we all prepared a bag of groceries, and everyone got a bag of groceries at the Head Start and at our school to make stone soup, to make soup. And so even our littlest children could put the carrots in the bag and count the 2 carrots that needed to go in each bag, and everybody created a bag. And this year we're providing food for the food pantry that exists at the Bourne Sandwich Head Start. All the proceeds of our annual bake sale, which is the best bake sale, as I'm sure many of you have awesome bake sales. And those funds go to the Bourne Sandwich Head Start, and then they tell us what they were able to do with those funds, and our children listen to those things. And so we're trying to bring it really close to home, and we thought focusing on one project made a lot of sense for us, given that we're 3-year-old through 12 years old, that one project. Our children can walk there when we have book buddies and we read to the children there. So it's becoming a really nice partnership, which feels important to all of them, I think, and even the 3-year-olds can get that they're giving these carrots to, or a bag of soup ingredients to someone else who needs a bag of soup ingredients. So it's been a powerful connection for us.
That's wonderful.
Fantastic.
Great.
Excellent. Was that okay? Education is an investment, right? And then you
Absolutely.
have school choice. There is a Cape Cod Independent School Night, Bourne Community Center, January 28th, 5:30 to 7. Looks to be well over 5 different types of presentations. Why choose an independent school? Myths about independent schools, things that we've talked about today. So I'm sure it's at the community center, I believe.
Yep.
Main Street in Buzzards Bay?
That's right. And it is the Greater Cape Cod Collaborative of Independent Schools, because we have representatives here from Dartmouth as well. And so that's, so we're hoping to have a great crowd there for people to learn that it is a choice to look into for your child. And if you think it's not for you, come to this event and perhaps you'll learn that it could be a choice for you and your family.
Excellent. So as we close, I think everybody's learned a lot, our viewers today, about independent schools, some of the myths. We did some myth busting and some great curriculum and things that are happening at independent schools. If we could leave our viewers with a sentence from each of our schools, why really doing your research on educating your child. There are so many choices today. What would you say to a parent that is possibly considering a school change, or maybe their child's just starting school, or they're struggling in their school of choice right now?
I think right from the beginning, Suzanne might have said it best. Why settle for fine when you could have fabulous?
Great.
I guess I would say, imagine your child learning in an environment where he or she feels good about their learning every day that they're there.
I think it's the most important choice that parents make, and yet I think a lot of people just make the most convenient choice without doing the extra work, and it does take some extra work. So I would just say go and see some schools. See as many schools as you possibly can if you think that possibly there's an option out there that might fit your child.
I think with our school at Trinity that we are the one Christian high school on the Cape that offers that as a possibility for your child, and often tell parents the phrase that the education doesn't really cost, it pays. In other words, it pays off in the long run. The results of the Christian kids that go to our school, we can see it in their faith, in their learning, and their success later in life.
I think it's so key when you have the opportunity to look beyond what is just a given in your community, and educating yourself is just so key. There's so many opportunities out there. My school may not be the right choice for one person, but it's the perfect choice for another. Nothing is better than hearing parents talk about how happy their kids are to come to school every day. And that goes from pre-K all the way through grade 12. Obviously, it's something you hear more consistently from parents of younger children, but it is just phenomenal to see the looks on parents' faces who have been down a path where education has been a painful topic for them with their child, for them to come to a school like ours and say, this has been the best decision I ever have made. I'm so glad I looked into it and did my research. That's the most powerful statement you can hear at any school that you are a part of. So I would just say do your due diligence for yourself and for your children, and just take a look. It doesn't cost you anything to explore us, and don't automatically assume you can't make it happen, because as everybody here has said, we really we try to work with every family that we see and make it possible.
I thank the panel for all of the sage advice, and I agree with what's been said so far. Just as a process note, when you go to the schools, talk to the other parents. Get a sense of the vibe. Are children happy? Are the teachers happy? Talk to the administrators. Get a felt sense, and trust that piece of the information as well as, what you read about it in the literature, because that will kind of give you an understanding of the community, and if you will feel at home there, because that's really crucial for your children too, because you're making this decision for them, and like Shannon said at the beginning, they're very happy, and usually it's the child who leads the parent. But as the tween years and pre-adolescence come, it flips, and it's really the parent who has to continue to lead the child. So to make sure that you understand the choices and really that you can buy in.
Fantastic. The Greater Cape Cod Collaborative of Independent Schools. Next week is Independent School Choice Week. You can learn more at the event in Buzzards Bay on January 28th, Wednesday, 5:30 to 7 p.m. I want to thank the Bridgeview Montessori School, Cape Cod Academy, Falmouth Academy, Friends Academy, Trinity Christian School, and Waldorf School of Cape Cod for being on the panel this morning. I think our viewers will learn a lot, and I'm Paula Hersey. I am your moderator today. If you have any questions, the Greater Cape Cod Collaborative of Independent Schools, you can contact any of them. The information will be on their websites for admissions.
Thank you, Paula.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Paula.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.